What up? It's your boy Wall Street, and I'm back. Thank you all for tuning in with me today. Appreciate having you here. Listen to me ramble on about the league, the NBA, basketball, all that. And today, doing another season recap for a team that was swept in the first round of the Eastern Conference playoffs by the Cleveland Cavaliers, which included a 55-point loss at home to close out the series. The Miami Heat. And boy, oh boy, have they had quite the season. And obviously, let's start from the top. Biggest piece of news that this team had this season was the Jimmy Butler drama that resulted in him eventually being traded to the Golden State Warriors. That was a move that sent Jimmy Butler to Golden State. The Heat got back Andrew Wiggins, Kyle Anderson, and Davion Mitchell. And a protected first-round pick from the Warriors. I believe it was lottery protected, so they will get that pick. It's a first-round pick, which is good because Miami's pick is actually with OKC this year, so they will have a first-round pick still, so that's good for them. In that trade, the Jazz received KJ Martin, Josh Richardson. He was later waived. They got a 2028 second-round pick from Philly and a 2031 second-round pick from the Heat. And then the Pistons got Dennis Schroeder and Lindy Waters the third. And I think PJ Tucker was involved too, and then he got sent to Toronto, and then I think he got waived. There's a whole bunch of craziness that went on with this trade. But this was probably the worst kept secret in the league. Everyone knew Jimmy Butler was getting traded. It was just kind of this like mental wrestling match between Pat Riley and Jimmy Butler, who was gonna give in first, right? Was Jimmy gonna finally just like play basketball and do what the Heat wanted him to do, or was Pat Riley just gonna pull the trigger? They're both very stubborn people, it seems like, at least from what I've seen. And that's not always a bad thing, but in this case, it was clearly there was just a lot of butting of heads. And, Pat Riley was like, we're going to suspend him, we're going to fine him, we're going to do all this stuff. And Jimmy came back, he played a little bit, but he wasn't really in it, you know what I mean? So it is what it is, right? Jimmy only wound up playing 25 games for the Heat this season. So his tenure with the Heat came to an end. He's doing great in Golden State, so we'll see how that goes. But on the other hand, this is a new chapter for the Miami Heat. And where do they go from here, right? So they finished in the 10 spot in the Eastern Conference, but they actually qualified for the play-in, the first ever 10 seed to qualified for the playoffs via the play-in. First ever 10 seed to make the playoffs in NBA history. And they had a record of 37-45. So like I said, 10 spot. They were the last one to qualify for the play-in. Winded up losing as the 8th seed to the Cleveland Cavaliers. And it was ugly. It was real ugly. And they just gave up in the last game. To lose by 55 points at home is crazy. And they were down by 30 early on, early second quarter, already down by 30. So it was rough. I think there are some good pieces on this team, but I think the strategy here is they do have, the majority of their draft picks in the foreseeable future. They own their first-round pick next year. They own their first-round pick in 2028. They don't own their first-round pick in 2027, but they own their first-round pick in 29, in 2030, in 2031 as well. So they're not really in a position where it's if they're bad, they're going to lose, a good draft pick. So that's a good thing. But it's a matter of, do you want to use that draft capital that you have to possibly get a superstar and continue to try and progress towards being a contending team like you were with Jimmy, right? I've heard a lot of rumors that they want to trade for Giannis, they want to trade for Dame, they want to trade for, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, who knows, right? So knowing Miami, they're always looking to kind of hit it out the park and get a good player back and just, do that. They don't want to wait. They don't want to wait to draft players and have them come in and do all that stuff. Even though Miami's very good at drafting players, I must say. Jaime Jaquez, 18th pick in 2023 draft. Great selection. Kel'el Ware, who was, I believe, the 15th pick in this past year's draft, also came on slow, but one of the best picks by far that we've seen so far. So they know how to draft players, right? They're going to have probably like the 20th pick or so in this year's draft, so we'll see who they get with that. But knowing Pat Riley, he's going to try and trade for a superstar, make a big splash, maybe make a big splash in free agency, I don't know, and see what he can do with that, right? Because they want to win. Miami's a team where they always want to win. They don't want to wait. They don't want their team to be bad. So I'm not sure what's really going to happen. I think they could go either way. They could kind of get rid of some of their players now. Like you could trade Tyler Herro. You could trade Bam Adebayo. You could trade Andrew Wiggins if you want and just start building around, even younger players, right? Trade those guys that I just named for more draft picks and just build your team up. Be bad for a little while and build your team up because, like I've said time and time again, the worst thing you can be in the league is mediocre because it gets you nowhere. You don't get really high draft picks enough to make a difference. And you don't really have players that are necessarily going to get you a ton of value on the market. You kind of just have to either choose to be bad or try to figure out a trade where you can land a superstar, right? That's really what you have to do in the league today. So I'm not sure what Miami's going to try and do, but they do have good young players. So I think if they trade Tyler Herro, they trade Bam Adebayo, you have Kel'el Ware, you have Jaime Jaquez, get some draft picks for those guys that I named, and then, build from there, right? I think that's a very, very good possibility. And I think that's a better move than even trading for a superstar, right? I think if you trade for Giannis or you trade for, Dame or Kevin Durant or any of these guys, they're big names on the market, right? Like, you're probably going to not really end up with the longevity of being in title contention, right? Like, I think Giannis in Miami is similar to Giannis on the Bucks. I think it's a better situation. I think they would do better, but I still don't think it gets you that far. I would recommend doing the hard and I guess regular approach for teams that are not in big markets. Miami's obviously a big market, but you cut your losses, trade away Tyler Herro while his value is high, trade away Bam Adebayo while his value is still high, trade away any other players that you can get some value for, first, second round picks, any of that, maybe some young players that are, 23, 24 years old or younger, and you start building around them, right? And that's how you kind of, build a new culture in Miami. I have no worries that Miami's going to be back in contention at some point. I just think they're going to be able to position themselves for a longer run at the title if they kind of build up from the ground up, right? By going through the draft, doing it that way instead of just trying to go out there and get a superstar, because you're still going to need players to play around them, right? I think that was the biggest critique I heard when they had Jimmy was this team is constantly overachieving. The fact that they went from the play-in to the NBA Finals in 2023 is absolutely insane. So I don't know if that's going to really happen again. Jimmy is a different breed when it comes to the playoffs. So not to say that Giannis or Kevin Durant isn't that, but we haven't seen that from them, honestly, right? Giannis has had a ton of first-round exits. Kevin Durant's had a ton of first-round exits. Jimmy Butler is a guy that is going to quite literally pull his team by the shirt up with him, right? Like, he is not going to lose, and I think he fit Miami Heat culture a lot. So it was sad to see him leave, but, it is what it is. It wasn't going to work out with him, so you got to kind of cut your ties. But my recommendation would be trade some of these guys that you have that have a lot of value. Keep guys like Davion Mitchell. He's a fantastic defender, really good player. Keep Kel'el Ware, keep Jaime Jaquez, keep all these guys and see what you can do, right? And just see if you can get some draft picks back. You can definitely get some draft picks for Bam. You can get some draft picks for Tyler. You can get some draft picks for Andrew Wiggins, I would have to imagine. And you have some good vets that are still going to be left there. Kyle Anderson, Alec Burks. He might be a free agent, though. I'm not sure if Alec Burks is coming back. Yeah, Alec Burks is going to be a free agent at the end of the season, or he is now technically. So he'll be signing a new deal somewhere this summer, most likely. He's 33 years old. But, Kel'el Ware is 21. Jaime Jaquez is also very young. How old is he? 24 years old. You got Kevin Love under contract next season. That's a good vet to have on your team. And prayers up to Kevin Love. He lost his dad. Very sad to hear that. Stan Love was an NBA player. Prayers up to Kevin. My condolences. Hope he's doing well. Hope his family's doing well. But he's going to be back on this team next season. Nikola Jovic, also a very good rookie. Or sorry, not rookie. He's a second-year player, I think. Or maybe even a third-year player now. But he's only 21 years old. So young dude on the team. And see what you can do with that. Right? You got Pell Larson, too, who's under contract for a little while. But that's my recommendation, man. I would trade away Bam, Tyler, Andrew, maybe Terry Rozier as well. And even Duncan Robinson. See what you can get. Get some draft picks. Play your young guys like Jaime and Kel'el Ware and Davion Mitchell and Jovic, and see what you can do. See what's happening. So that's all I got, guys. If you're a Miami Heat fan, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Let me know how you think the season went. What do you think about, this team moving forward? What do you think they should do? And I want to talk, so leave those comments, man, and we'll get into it. But I'm going to check you guys later, man. Stay safe, stay blessed, stay up, stay humble, handle business, stand on business. Peace out.